father to humiliate me in front of everyone. But there I was, standing in the center of a grand dining hall, surrounded by family members who were dressed in their finest attire. The air was thick with the scent of roasted meat, expensive wine, and something far more unpleasant: judgment. "You're nothing but a disappointment," my father's voice cut through the chatter like a blade. His cold, scrutinizing eyes bore into me, filled with disgust. "You're just a failure." The room fell silent. All eyes turned to me. I clenched my fists, my nails digging into my palm. I had come here expecting tension, but not this. My father had always been distant, but this was different. It was personal. His words weren't just meant to scold me. They were designed to tear me apart. He took a step closer, swirling the wine in his glass before scoffing. "Manual labor? Is this really what you've resorted to? Do you have no shame?" A few of my aunts exchanged glances, clearly uncomfortable, but no one dared to step in. I swallowed hard, my throat dry. "There's nothing wrong with hard work, father." He let out a sharp laugh, shaking his head. "Hard work? You think scrubbing floors and lifting boxes is hard work? You were born into privilege, yet you choose to degrade yourself? You bring shame to our name." I could feel my breathing become shallow, my vision narrowing. I had spent years trying to prove myself, working tirelessly, but to him, none of it mattered. Before I could say anything, another voice interrupted. One that carried weight. One that silenced even my father. "Then you should all know the real truth." The voice belonged to my grandfather. He had remained seated at the far end of the long dining table, quiet throughout my father's tirade. But now, as he slowly stood up, all eyes shifted to him. Grandfather was a man of few words, but when he spoke, people listened. His silver hair, neatly combed back, gleamed under the chandelier's light. His presence commanded respect. My father's smirk faltered for the first time. "What truth?" he asked, voice unsure. Grandfather placed both hands on the table, his gaze sweeping over everyone before locking onto my father. His next words sent a shockwave through the room. "The only shame here is yours, not hers." Murmurs erupted. My father visibly stiffened. Grandfather exhaled slowly before continuing, his voice unwavering. "You all think you know where our wealth comes from? You believe this empire was built by sitting in offices, wearing expensive suits, looking down on those who work with their hands." His eyes gleamed, sharp with something unreadable. "Then you should hear the truth." And with that, he began unraveling a story that would change everything. Everyone leaned in. Even my father, who moments ago had been so sure of himself, now looked uneasy. Grandfather glanced at me before turning back to the crowd. This family was not built on luxury. It was built on sweat, blood, and hard work. He straightened. "And it started with me." I blinked. "What?" "You see," he continued, "when I was younger I had nothing. Not a single coin to my name. Unlike my son here," he shot my father a pointed look, "I did not inherit wealth. I built it." Gasps spread across the table. "What are you talking about?" my father said, his voice tight. Grandfather ignored him. "I started as a construction worker. I spent years breaking my back, laying bricks, mixing cement, working under the scorching sun just to survive. Every single penny I made went toward building this family. And I never once felt shame." My heart pounded. I had never heard this before. "Manual labor is not beneath us," he continued. "It made us." My father's face paled. "That's ridiculous. You always told me you built our wealth through investments." Grandfather chuckled dryly. "Investments?" His voice turned sharp. "The first land I bought, I couldn't even afford. I worked day and night, doing hard labor, to gather enough money. That was my first investment." The entire room was in stunned silence. "And now," he looked at my father, "you mock your own daughter for doing what I once did? You ridicule her for working with her hands, just as I did." He scoffed. "It is not she who brings shame to this family. It is you, for forgetting where we came from." My father's jaw clenched. "Enough," Grandfather said, voice firm. "I am not finished." He turned to me, And for the first time that night, I felt something unexpected: pride. "You remind me of myself," he said. "And that is why I have made a decision." My stomach flipped. A decision? Grandfather glanced at the rest of the family. "I have been thinking about this for a long time," he announced. "I built this empire. And soon, someone must take over." My father straightened. "Of course. That's always been the plan." No, Grandfather cut him off. His eyes met mine. "I choose her." The entire room exploded in whispers. My father shot up from his seat, his face red with rage. "You can't be serious." Grandfather remained unshaken. I have never been more serious in my life. My breath caught. "Grandfather, He held up a hand, silencing me. "I have watched you work. I have watched you struggle, fight, and persist when others would have given up. That is what a leader needs." My father slammed his glass down, spilling red wine across the white tablecloth. "You can't just hand everything over to her. She's not fit to run anything." Grandfather's eyes darkened. "And you are?" He let the words sink in before adding, "You've spent your life living off my success, mocking those who actually work. You have done nothing to deserve this empire." My father's breathing was heavy, his fists clenched. "This is a joke." "It is justice," Grandfather corrected. I looked at my father, who was seething with resentment. He had always believed he was entitled to everything. And now, the rug had been pulled out from under him. I felt a fire ignite inside me. This wasn't just about me anymore. It was about proving that hard work was worth something. That no matter where you started, you could build something for yourself. I straightened my spine and met my father's glare with unwavering determination. He wanted to see me as a failure? Then he was about to see just how wrong he was. The room was in chaos. Family members whispered furiously among themselves, exchanging shocked glances. My father's face was a storm of emotions: rage, disbelief, humiliation. I, on the other hand, felt something entirely different. For the first time in my life, I felt seen. Grandfather had chosen me. I had spent years being looked down upon, ridiculed, treated as if I were worthless. And now, in front of everyone, the most powerful figure in our family had declared me his successor. "Father, you can't be serious." My father's voice was hoarse, his hands shaking as he gripped the edge of the table. "She has no experience, no business sense. She's been wasting her time with menial work." Grandfather exhaled sharply. "And what have you been doing?" His gaze was piercing. "Leeching off my hard work? Living in luxury while looking down on the very foundation that gave you that privilege." My father opened his mouth, then closed it. His face turned red. I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. I wasn't sure if it was from exhilaration or fear. This was happening too fast, and I hadn't even processed what it meant yet. "Grandfather," I said, my voice coming out steadier than I expected. "Are you sure about this?" His expression softened as he looked at me. I have never been more certain of anything in my life. But I hesitated. "I don't have the business background. I'm not like them." "That is exactly why you are the right choice," he said firmly. "This family needs someone who understands the value of hard work, not just numbers on a spreadsheet." I swallowed hard. I had always thought of myself as the outsider in this family, the one who didn't belong. But hearing those words from my grandfather made something inside me shift. My father, however, wasn't ready to give up. "This is insane," he snapped. "I've spent my whole life preparing to take over. She can't just waltz in and take what's mine." Grandfather's eyes darkened. "Yours? You think you're entitled to my legacy just because of your last name?" He shook his head in disappointment. "You were supposed to earn it. And you never did." My father's chest heaved, his face a mixture of fury and panic. He wasn't just losing an inheritance, he was losing control. Losing the power he had spent years lording over others. "This isn't over," he muttered, his voice dangerously low. Grandfather gave him a hard look. "That's up to you." And just like that, the conversation was over. Grandfather sat back down, taking a slow sip of his drink. The room remained tense, but no one dared to challenge him. The weight of what had just happened settled on me. I had just been named the heir to a massive empire, but I had also made an enemy of my father. And something told me he wasn't going to let this go. The party ended in awkward silence. Some relatives avoided my gaze, while others gave me hesitant nods of approval. My father had stormed out, my mother trailing after him with a worried expression. I exhaled, running a hand through my hair. This was unreal. You're in for a fight, you know. I turned to see my cousin, Daniel, standing beside me. He was one of the few in the family I actually got along with. I let out a dry laugh. Yeah, I got that impression. He gave me a half smile. You handled yourself well back there. I didn't handle anything, I muttered. Grandfather did. He shrugged. Still, you didn't back down. That's more than most people in this family can say. I appreciated his words, but they didn't ease the growing tension in my chest. This wasn't just about me anymore. This was about proving that I was worthy of what had just been handed to me. And I had no idea where to start. Before I could say anything else, my phone buzzed. A message from an unknown number. You don't belong in this world. Walk away before it's too late. I felt a chill run down my spine. The battle had begun. The following morning, I woke up to find my name plastered all over the news. Billionaire names unqualified granddaughter as heir. A disastrous decision? The next leader or a nepotism case gone wrong? Former manual labor set to inherit family empire. Experts react. My stomach turned. I had never been in the public eye before. Now I was the center of attention for all the wrong reasons. I reached for my phone, heart pounding as I scrolled through social media. The comments were brutal. She has no business experience. This is a joke. If I were in that family, I'd be furious. She used her grandfather's favoritism to jump the line. I gritted my teeth. I had expected resistance from my father, but now the whole world had an opinion on me. A call came in. It was grandfather. I answered immediately. Grandfather. I assume you've seen the news, he said, his voice calm. Yes, I admitted.
He sighed.
The media will always have something to say. What matters is how you respond. I closed my eyes. And how do I respond? You proved them wrong. It was easier said than done. And as I would soon find out, my father had no intention of letting me succeed. Over the next week, I was thrown into the deep end. Meetings, financial reports, business jargon that made my head spin. I barely had time to breathe, but I pushed through. I worked late into the night, studying everything I could. I refused to be the failure they expected me to be. Then one morning I walked into a board meeting and realized something was wrong. Everyone was whispering. Their eyes flicked toward me, with barely concealed smirks. I frowned, sliding into my seat. What's going on? My father sat across from me, a triumphant gleam in his eyes. You're about to find out. The CEO cleared his throat. Miss, we have some concerns. I stiffened. Concerns? He slid a document across the table. About your handling of the company's finances. I picked it up, scanning the numbers, and my blood ran cold. This wasn't just a minor mistake.
It was a disaster.
A financial report had been leaked, showing massive losses under my name. Losses I hadn't caused. Losses that had been fabricated. A setup. I looked up and my father was watching me, smiling. Looks like you're not cut out for this after all, he said smoothly. My grip on the paper tightened. This was war. And I wasn't going down without a fight. The air in the boardroom was suffocating. I could feel the weight of every pair of eyes watching me, waiting for me to crumble. My father sat across from me, leaning back in his chair with a smirk that made my blood boil. Well, he drawled, tilting his head mockingly. Do you have anything to say for yourself? I clenched my jaw, my fingers tightening around the document. I scanned the numbers again, searching for something, anything, that would explain how this had happened. These losses weren't real. I knew they weren't. But to everyone else in this room, they were undeniable proof of my incompetence. These numbers are wrong, I said finally, my voice firm despite the storm inside me. I never authorized these transactions. The CEO gave me a pitying look. The documents say otherwise, Mississippi. I exhaled sharply. Then someone tampered with them. My gaze snapped to my father. And I think we all know who that someone is. Gasps rippled through the boardroom, but my father just chuckled.
Oh, sweetheart, he sighed.
Blaming others for your mistakes? That's not very professional. The sheer arrogance in his tone made my stomach turn. I could see what he was doing. He wasn't just trying to discredit me, he was trying to humiliate me, to break me in front of these people. But I refused to let him win. Give me 48 hours, I said, standing up. I'll prove these numbers are fake. The CEO hesitated. The rest of the board exchanged skeptical glances. Then finally the CFO nodded.
Fine, he said.
But if you can't prove it, you will be removed from your position. I took a deep breath. Understood. I turned to leave, but not before locking eyes with my father. The smirk was still there, but there was something else in his gaze too. Amusement. He thought he had already won. But he had underestimated me. Big mistake. I barely slept that night. I pored over every financial document, every transaction log, trying to find the flaw in my father's setup. But whoever had forged these numbers had done a damn good job of covering their tracks. I needed help. And there was only one person I trusted with this. Daniel. My cousin was already waiting when I arrived at his apartment early in the morning. He took one look at my face and sighed. Let me guess, your father finally made his moves? I handed him the files. He's trying to frame me. I have 48 hours to prove this is fake, or I'm out. Daniel whistled.
Damn.
He's not playing around. I rubbed my temples, exhausted. Can you help me or not? He grinned. Do you even have to ask? Within minutes, he had set up his laptop, fingers flying over the keyboard as he analyzed the transaction records. I watched in awe. Daniel had always been the tech-savvy one in the family, and right now I needed every ounce of his skill. An hour passed. Then two. Then. Found it, Daniel said suddenly. I shot up.
What?
Where? He turned the screen toward me. There's a discrepancy in the timestamps. The system records every action, even edits. Someone altered these documents after they were originally created. I leaned in, my heart pounding. And then I saw it. A digital footprint. An IP address. I sucked in a breath. That's my father's office. Daniel grinned. Bingo. We had him. But I wasn't going to confront him just yet. No, if he wanted to play dirty, I'd show him that I could play smarter. It was time to turn the tables. The next day, I walked into the boardroom with a confidence I hadn't felt before. My father was already there, relaxed in his chair, ready to watch me fail. Well, the CEO asked, do you have any evidence to support your claim? I placed the printed documents on the table. Not only were these numbers altered, but I also have proof of who altered them. The board members leaned in. I pressed a button on my tablet, and a screen lit up behind me. A security log appeared, showing the exact moment the financial records were tampered with. And, at the bottom, the IP address of my father's office. The silence was deafening. I turned to face my father, watching as his smirk vanished. His face paled. Would you like to explain this, father? Asked sweetly. He opened his mouth, but no words came out. The CEO cleared his throat. This is serious. Another board member shook his head. We can't overlook this kind of manipulation. Murmurs spread through the room. My father was losing control. And I was just getting started. My father's face was a storm of emotions, shock, rage, and most of all, fear. He had spent years controlling the narrative, ensuring that no one ever questioned his authority. And now, in a single moment, I had stripped him of that power. I folded my arms, letting the silence settle, letting him feel the weight of his own downfall. This is ridiculous. He finally spat, his voice sharp with desperation. These records could have been manipulated by anyone. I smirked. Then you won't mind us investigating further, right? I turned to the CEO. I suggest a full forensic audit of all recent financial transactions, just to make sure this isn't a larger issue. My father paled further. He knew what that meant. He had probably done a lot worse than just framing me. And once the auditors started digging, they would find everything. That won't be necessary, he said quickly. Oh, I think it is, the CFO said, his voice cold. This company cannot afford fraud or corruption. My father clenched his jaw, his hands balling into fists. He was trapped and he knew it. Then the CEO turned to me. You've proven yourself today, he said. We will clear your name, and I will personally ensure that you are given the resources to succeed in this role. I nodded. Thank you. Then the CEO looked at my father. As for you, we'll need to have a discussion about your future with this company. I saw it then, the moment he realized he had lost. For the first time in my life, my father had no power over me, and it felt incredible. That evening, I returned home feeling victorious. But I knew better than to celebrate too soon. Because my father was not the kind of man who accepted defeat. And I was right. Later that night, I received a message from an unknown number. This isn't over. You took something that wasn't yours. And I'm going to take it back. I exhaled slowly, gripping my phone. I had expected this. My father wasn't just going to fade into the background. He was going to fight. And if I wasn't careful, he would do whatever it took to destroy me. But I wasn't afraid. Because I had something he never did. I had earned my place. And I wasn't going anywhere. The next morning, I woke up to chaos. News articles flooded social media, painting me as an inexperienced, spoiled heiress who had stolen a billion-dollar empire out of nepotism. A legacy in the wrong hands? From laborer to CEO, the controversial rise of an unqualified successor. Sources say internal conflict is tearing the company apart. I knew exactly who was behind this. My father was using the media to discredit me, to turn public opinion against me before I even had a chance to prove myself. But he had underestimated me again. I called Daniel. I need you to track who leaked these stories. An hour later, he had an answer. It's coming from PR firms connected to your father's personal accounts, he said. He's spending millions to control the narrative. I clenched my jaw. Then we changed the narrative. And I knew exactly how to do it. Instead of fighting the rumors, I embraced them. I scheduled a live interview on the biggest business network, sitting across from a ruthless journalist, known for tearing people apart. And I let them ask me the hardest questions. People say you don't deserve this position.
What do you say to that?
I say they're right to question me, I said honestly. But I also say give me time. Let my actions speak for themselves. Your father claims you manipulated your grandfather into giving you control. Do you deny that? My grandfather made his decision because he believed in me, and I refused to let him down. By the time the interview ended, public perception had shifted. I had turned myself from a spoiled heiress into the underdog fighting for her rightful place. And people loved an underdog. A week later, my father stormed into my office. You think you've won? He hissed. I leaned back in my chair, calm. Haven't I? His fists clenched. You have no idea what you're doing. I met his gaze. And yet, I'm still standing. While you're the one who lost everything. He was breathing heavily, his entire body radiating fury. But there was something else in his eyes. Something almost like fear. Because deep down, he knew I wasn't weak anymore. I had fought back. And I had won. It wasn't easy. There were still people in the company who doubted me. Investors who hesitated. Challenges that felt impossible. But I worked harder than I ever had. And after months of proving myself, after overcoming every roadblock, I finally stood in front of the company's employees and delivered the speech of my life. My grandfather built this company from the ground up, I said. And I intend to honor his legacy. Not by sitting in an office, but by making sure everyone in this company is valued, no matter their background. Applause erupted. And for the first time, I felt like I belonged. I never saw my father again after that. He disappeared, drowning in the consequences of his own actions. Sometimes I wondered if he ever regretted what he did. But in the end, it didn't matter. I had built something better than he ever could. Because I had built it on respect. On real hard work. And that was a legacy worth leaving behind. Years later, as I walked through the company I now ran, I passed by a janitor scrubbing the floors. I stopped. And I bent down, grabbing another mop. The janitor looked at me in shock. "Miss, you don't have to do that." I smiled. No work is beneath me, because this was the lesson my grandfather had taught me, and I would never forget it. Looking back, I realized something. My father had always been afraid that if people like me proved that hard work mattered more than privilege, his entire way of life would fall apart. And in the end, that was exactly what happened. But I had built something stronger, something real, and I would never let it be taken away. As I stood in my office, looking out at the skyline, I knew I had done something no one expected. I had turned my greatest humiliation into my greatest victory. And in doing so, I had become more than just a name.